All right, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of the Built by Bailey's podcast. We have a returning guest. Introduce him in a minute. First, want to say thank you once again to our sponsors, of course, Confluence SBC Co-working Space in Boulder County. Thank you for all your support, and of course, Brian Scott of 6ix9ine Graphics and Design, the man, the myth, the legend in the sticker game. And if you need any sort of branding, logos, or whatever, he is your man. So go check those guys out for sure. But now that the formalities are quickly out of the way, I want to welcome in our next guest, who is a returning guest, as I said, the man, the myth, the legend in himself, Jon Dawson. Welcome to the podcast. What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be back on. I know we talked about it. I'm stoked to be back on,
Yeah,
and man, I'm
yeah.
doing good. I'm doing good. How you doing?
Hanging in there, man. Yeah, we're just been I'm all over the place right now. As of you, as of course you are too, but yeah, just trying to things were kind of slow for a little bit, and that was intentionally slow for me, but now we're ramping back up. We're actually getting ready to do a shipping container build up in the mountains here. So yeah, we're it's gonna be a process. It's gonna be a steep learning curve. I feel like it's one of those things you get into something new in the building world, and you're like, I think I got this dialed in, and then the moment you start, you're like, oh, I didn't think about this.
Because
So
there's a whole nother list of variables that you don't even you couldn't know about. Like, how would you?
yeah,
You've never done it before, so
yeah,
but that's
exactly.
kind of fun though. Yeah, I think you're the type of person that enjoys that like unknown. Because like after a while, when you're able to plan for everything, you kind of get a little bored. Now it's like it's kind of exciting. Every day, you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, it is exciting, and I've been overly stressed, and I'm probably making more of some of the stuff than I need to. But I just want to try and, dot my I's, cross my T's as much as possible before I get on the job site. You know how it goes. And all of a sudden you're like, man, I wish I'd thought about this before we were here, kind of thing. So we'll see. But it's all be up
Yeah.
on the YouTube channel as well. And you guys go check it out when it gets going. Should be fun. There'll be some F bombs probably at some point and a little frustration, but yeah, no, you're right. It's gonna be fun. I'm excited. So I'm excited. But you got
Have
some
you
stuff
looked?
going on.
I was gonna say, have you looked? I've been because I was kind of looking into container homes because obviously they're kind of a big
Mhm.
deal right now. I've been seeing a lot of YouTube thumbnails. I haven't actually watched the videos. I haven't had time, but they're saying container homes are a scam. I haven't looked into it, but apparently a
Yeah.
bunch of people are talking trash on them now, and I'm wondering if you know what that's about.
Well, I think a lot of it comes down to an expectation of it being a lot less expensive. Like, I mean, like dramatically less expensive than stick built would be, conventional construction. And I think there's some stuff you're getting into. You're using, used metal boxes. And I
Yeah,
think the ploy is that I mean, you can certainly overbuild these things. And if you start trying to make this into something it's not, which is a very simple, I would call it a modern boxy design. If you're okay with working through those caveats, then I don't think there's anything wrong with doing it this way. But if there's an expectation of I can just take these and just push it out quicker and faster, cheaper, and you're starting to cut the crap out of them and do all kinds of weird stuff. No, that's not what these are for, and that's not the use of building with these things. So, as far as a scam, I mean, what's a scam? Someone's trying to
it
sell
comes
you
down to
something
the
doesn't
people
work,
selling it. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, it
exactly,
comes down to the
exactly.
seller, not the actual product. That
Right.
makes sense. When you take something like that, then you try to reinvent it. It's like, well, what was the point in starting with that product in the first place? Now
Exactly.
you might as well
Yeah.
just stick framed it. But awesome, man.
You
I'm
have to
excited.
have some
I want to look
expectations.
into that.
Yeah, no, it's there's definitely a use for them. I mean, here out in Colorado, some of these lots that are very difficult to build on, where it be, there's a lot of rock, and instead of wanting to like blast and dynamite, you can use helical piers or something else. But it also, I mean, the cost of building out here is just stupid at this point.
Yeah,
And between that and timing, guys like us, we get timing's all about profit for us too. So there is a definite move towards building quicker with these things for sure. If you've got everything set up ahead of time, and obviously, like for me, the learning curve is going to be steep. But once I figure it out, it should go pretty quickly for the next one and the next one and the next one. So,
what's
um,
what's the insulation like? What's your envelope like? Can you get a solid insulated, house?
Yeah, you can actually, and that's I think one of the misnomers too when they say these are scams or whatever. We've got pretty strict building codes out here, and more because we have huge fluctuations in temp. We go real cold. We can get up in the 90s a lot of days in the summertime. And you're building with metal boxes, so you've got a lot of thermal issues you got to deal with, and try and get a true thermal break. You're dealing with, what kind of insulation are you using? And from everything I've seen, you're either doing a combo of furring out the outside of the container, which means you got to clad it too, which is starting to get into the overbuilding. But then you do like a rigid foam and then some insulation on the inside, or you can get away with 2x4 furred wall construction and just spray foam it because you're doing about R7 per inch, and at 3.5 inches, our above grade, our value has to be a 19 or a 19. So that's
Yeah,
where we're at. And
that's
then,
crazy.
depending on what kind of foundation you're doing, you can hit it for sure. I mean, I've got all mine dialed in. We have to do all these IECC stuff. So you got to make sure that you're on the ball with that stuff, or they'll hit you, and they don't care. They may go ahead and permit you and then say, hey, you need to certify this. And if your spray foam guy can't certify it, guess what happens?
Then you're just
You're screwed.
shit out of luck. Man, that's
Mhm.
crazy.
Mhm.
That's yeah, see, I'm excited to kind of see that happen because I've seen a lot of people because here in Texas they do it, but if you saw the code that Texas builds to, you probably would never step foot in a Texas house again. Um, it's really insane what they allow, what they will pass here in Texas as up to code.
Yeah.
So I'm always excited to watch things because I don't build the Texas code. Whenever I'm building, I'm usually building to California code, something that's a little more robust, I guess. But I always like watching bills that are happening in like Colorado or Utah
Mhm.
or areas like that because then you really start to see good insulation value, good structural integrity, stuff like that. So yeah, I'm excited to see a container home pop up in Colorado. That'll be exciting.
Yeah, and it's certainly kind of becoming a thing out here. But we and remind me, I'm trying to remember Texas requirements. Do you have to be licensed out there to build? Is there a requirement? Because I know a guy that goes back and forth a lot, and he says no, but does it depend on where you're
You
at?
don't.
Okay.
In the easy answer, no, you don't.
Okay.
In the complicated answer, you do have to file all your documents, and you need to show your insurances, your bond, all that different stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but overall, no, which is
Okay.
another major
And
issue.
that leads to some of the problems. I got a buddy who's a home inspector out in Montana. It's the same deal. There's no requirement for licensure. And there's a lot of guys that are, but there's no requirement. And the stuff that he sends me, it's just blows my mind sometimes. It's wild what people are trying to get away
It's
with.
And I don't know what they think, because even for me on the build that I'm on right now, right? I'm out in the sticks. I have no inspections. Like I have no one
Yeah.
coming in and saying, "Hey, yes, no." So I really do like it because I can get away with some weird things,
Right.
which are usually over engineered. I don't go with under engineered. I usually over engineer.
Yeah.
Like I'm framing mine right now with 2x10s, right? And this
Okay.
is a 20-foot span building. So we're framing 2x10s on like 9 foot 8, which is
Okay.
for Texas where we don't have any snow load, anything like that. I mean,
Right.
it's widely overkill, but the R value I can get in those cavities is going to be insane, and
Oh
that's why I'm
yeah.
doing that. Um, and a lot of people out here are framing with 2x8s, and they're spanning like I don't even know what the max span is, but you would see some spans with these 2x8s, and you're just like, it looks like those houses you climb into from like the 70s when they didn't really have that code, and you're like, man, I can't believe people lived in this, and we're still building like that out here. So,
Yeah.
and the thing is, another thing is the inspection. So we don't have like California. You have like nail inspection, you have sheathing inspection, all this different.
Right.
Each step is inspected pretty much. Here in Texas, I mean, it's pretty much you get a site inspection, and then you're not really getting anybody out there until you're completely framed and almost dried in for the most part. So like,
Huh.
there's a lot of stuff that can get buried from one inspection to the next here in Texas
Yeah.
that no one will ever see. And that's kind of where a lot of these the cheaper builds, the guys who just kind of are trying to make a bottom dollar where you can get a lot of issues here in Texas.
Yeah, and that's unfortunate. And I think it's somebody asked me the other day actually when they're talking about some of this, or not global, but national requirements for certification. It's like there's a national requirement for certification. It's the ICC. But then per state, and actually out here it's per county and per building department. as far as what licensure is required. You have to be licensed to build, except for maybe a couple places. But the funny part is with those places that they're so strict with their inspections and their code, building requirements, that whether you're licensed or not, they're going to catch you, if you miss something. But I think
Yeah.
the problem is more, whether you're a licensed contractor and you have the correct, documentation and even experience. I think it comes down to just not knowing what to do correctly or not keeping up with, advanced trends and building science. And it's not guys out there just trying to, build crappy stuff. It's more just people out there not knowing any better. And I think that's where the bigger problem comes in. And I mean, that's where I kind of just run around trying to help people with some of that stuff too, is what
It's
do I
hard to
do?
know.
It's hard to know a lot of things. And if you're not keeping up with it, it's, things change all the time. And, I mean, I see you like running all your tool promos and your tool tests. And I got a couple other guys that are kind of, big social media guys that are doing that kind of stuff. And it's like, when I see you guys do that, I'm like, I haven't even heard of this. How is that possible? But it's really cool because I need some of that stuff to keep going. Right.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays things are being cranked out. There's so much competition in the trades now. And I think that's brought on by social media, right? People
Hmm.
are starting to see a side of our world that was kind of pretty hidden up until the last 10, 15 years. Like it was kind of like
Yep.
this house just appears. We don't talk about the tools and all that other stuff that really got it there. But yeah, I mean, even I was at IBS in Florida the other day, and just looking at the technologies that they have there is is mind blowing. Like, I mean, I'm fairly plugged into the builder community. I don't know everything, and I can't execute everything. See, there's a big difference
Hmm.
between knowing it and executing it.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
I not only don't know everything, but I can't execute it, everything. So I go there and I see all this technology that they're putting out there, and it's almost impossible to keep up. I mean, you go 1 year and then you go to the next year, and it's all new technology. There's new programs, there's new engineering specs, there's new. I mean, it's hard, and a lot of people, especially in the trades, and I'm sure you've experienced this, are kind of like old heads, right? Where they're just like, this is the
Yeah.
way we've always done it, and this new technology, is a bunch of just hoopla or whatever they want to say, and you're
Hmm.
just like, but it makes the build better and more efficient. So, like, wouldn't you want to at least try it? So, I here in Texas, we have that issue too, where it's almost like a stubborn. Like, I get looked at weird because I'll be doing something a little higher than what's expected, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're just wasting money. You're just throwing money down the drain." I'm like, "Yeah, but
Yeah.
like." Think about the longevity of it, or the R value that you can get out of making these cavities this, or if you were to raise your foundation a little bit higher off the ground, how much more how you can condition your space a little bit better, like all these little things. But it's hard to get the dollar signs out of people's heads,
Hmm.
and that's kind of one of the main reasons I actually stopped doing a lot of work for other people and just the
Yep.
public. I don't want to build crap because it's cheap, right? Like
Right.
it's I want to build something that I'm proud of and something that I can walk away and go to bed at night and be like, that's they're going to be happy with that forever.
Oh yeah.
And people don't realize that. They just kind of, they see, an extra 10 grand on their estimate, and they're like, no, let's cut it down. And I'm like, yeah, sorry. Like I can't.
And that's hard because there's kind of a feeling behind the client, the end client, thinking that you're just trying to make more money and trying to take advantage of a situation, right? And I've had I mean, I got away from it probably a couple of years ago, right before all this nonsense started a couple of years ago. But I kind of was on the way out of client work anyway, for the most part, especially the remodel world. And it's the same thing. It's like, well, what's code, Shane? And I was like, I mean, yeah, we can get away with doing that because we'll sign off, but that's not what I do. And they're just like, well, then I want it that way. And it was like, it's the same thing. Like, I want to be proud of what I built. And I want to be proud of, I mean, I'm a big building science guy and trying to figure out different ways to do things. That's why we're trying this whole shipping container, project in in itself, is to figure it out. But when people say that
And
to me,
that's
I'm like,
partly on
ugh,
us too. Like that's
it is
client. That's like,
absolutely.
I take. I mean, that is on us. Like you got to
Yeah.
shoot
Yeah.
for those clients. But again, it's also what can you handle? Like I would
Yeah.
love to have the $3 million, build clients, but I
Yep.
don't have the ability to do a $3 million build. I don't have the infrastructure for that. So
Right.
like with my brain and then my ability, they're on two separate separate levels of the playing field. So that's kind of where, I mean I've seen some of the stuff you guys do. I mean you guys are doing awesome work. So I think that's kind of is that where you guys are headed more, like the more luxury and then also doing it for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I even hesitate at luxury at this point. I mean, because out here it's just like, what does that number even mean anymore? It's just so crazy expensive. I want to make some. Listen, I have goals of some of the builds. I have like sketches all over my office of things of concepts I want to do. I don't even know what the hell that's going to cost at this point. And I don't want to like just, even on an unlimited budget, because people ask me this question all the time on a limited budget, what would you build? I'm like, I don't think that's the purpose. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, throw me 10 million bucks, I could build you whatever, but where do you, I mean, I still wouldn't spend it probably, you know what I mean? Like there's got to be a break
Yeah.
somewhere. But for us, it's going to be for sure specs. I'm really actually trying to dial down the cost of the build itself, because I want to bring, we're we're in the precipice of a really nasty turn here.
Mm.
And I don't want people literally out on the streets, right? I mean, we had all these fires happen end of last year, and there's just more and more of those lots going up because people just can't afford the cost to build, and they can't rebuild what was there because insurance
Oh,
wasn't on the ball. It's just a mess, and it's sad to watch. But people are leaving the state now because they can't afford to build here, and it's like, well, we have a
I
problem. So
know.
how do we
They're all
solve it?
coming here. They're all coming here,
Well,
man.
they all came out from Texas here, and now they're all going
And
back. Yeah.
going same thing with California, man. It's
Hmm.
well, the build. It's I mean, and that's kind of. I mean, I'm blessed to be in the industry and kind of start where I started with social media and influencing, which I hate that word, but it is what it is. But alone, like just to she. So I was watching. I don't know if you know Matt Risinger. I'm sure you
Oh
do.
yeah, yeah,
He does the build shows, build technology. So I was watching a video from him back in 2018. I don't know why I'm getting blurry here. Um, and 2018, he was going over zip system,
Mhm.
OSB, plywood, and then I think there's like a denser OSB or something in between. And he was going through each one and talking about cost. Like he went through the first sheet of OSB. He's like, this sheet of OSB to sheet a house is like, I think it was like $5 and 60 something cents. To sheet the whole house, like
Mhm.
the 3,000 square feet, it would cost you like 7,800 bucks. And I was sitting there because it was right after I got all my sheathing and Advantech subfloor,
Right.
15K,
Yeah.
15K purely for a small. This is a small guest house. This is about 1,200 square feet and 8-foot walls, right? Nothing fancy.
Mhm.
And 15 grand just to have subfloor and
Damn.
sheathing and roof decking. And before we were sheathing houses, the 4,000 square foot build I did a year ago, 2 years ago, we sheathed that whole thing, I think, for like nine to 12 grand. I think I can't remember. We
Mhm.
had some change orders there. People are literally getting structure and sheathing and basically drawing in to a certain extent their
Mhm.
build for the price that it used to cost to build an entire
The
home.
entire thing. Yep. I know.
Like, and that's
I
why the
know.
container home thing is interesting, and all these other different avenues are interesting because the price of this stuff. I mean, the sheets of zip, the 7/16 or whatever it
Mhm.
um, is what is it costing? I think I just got an invoice for it. I think it's like 80 something, or no, I think that was the Advantech. The sheathing is 50. I forgot what it was, but I saw the invoice and I was like, "Holy crap." Like I got the invoice 30 days early and I didn't order it in time. And in those 30 days, it went from 11 grand to 15 grand.
That's
And I had to
insane.
pay an extra, I think 3,700 bucks because I waited 30 days. Like
Yeah.
that's where the building industry is at right now. And that's for all product, not just sheathing.
Oh yeah, it's everything. It's across the board drywall. I mean, I remember when OSB was 950 a sheet, right? And there
Yeah.
was a very small window, like a point in time when I was actually helping a friend do a pretty big addition down south of me, and he started about a little over a year ago, right at the peak of when like lumber futures were about to just explode, right? And he was laughing because he's like, this is like the worst time to start. And I'm like, it is for this stuff for sure. And a year later it was half the price. I ran the numbers out to show him like this is what it would actually be. And it's still expensive. But yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, he was way over, but there was a small window, like a point in time where that OSB and the zip sheet was exactly the same price. And so I was
Yeah.
going around telling people like, well, there's no reason you should not be buying Zip, right? There's no reason you should not be doing this right now, because take advantage of before everything just goes bonkers. Buy the better product at the same price. And then, everything hit the fan. So it's it's a problem that I don't think is going to go away, and there's no incentive to. So I don't
I
know,
don't
man.
think it will. If people are
Mm-mm.
building with it, I mean, it's same thing with gas, right? Like if
Hmm.
people are, yeah. So I just looked it up. So the zip system sheeting is $71 a sheet.
I used to buy those for
That's,
30 a sheet, man. 30.
I'm telling you, I
And I was
think like
complaining.
yeah, like, I remember, like, 34, and I was like, "Man, that's expensive," but, you know, you're
uh,
getting your house wrap, you do the calculations, you could make it work. Now
yep.
70, you're like, but, I mean, OSB is not far behind, so,
No.
again, it's the same calculations, just higher numbers. I think the more the country deals with it, the less likely these manufacturers are gonna go down. Like,
Hmm.
why, you know, if I'm selling T-shirts for $60, because inflation is crazy, and
Hmm.
people are still buying my T-shirts, there's no reason when everything pans out for me to stop selling them at 60 if
That's right.
obviously my product is worth that to somebody.
Yep.
So it's hard for me, you know, I think gas will all obviously level itself out because there's a different powers that be when it comes to that. But for these, you know, companies, I don't know, man. I'm kind of worried about it, and I've been talking to some people that are getting into real estate investing or
Hmm.
flipping or whatever, and I'm like, if you're gonna do any type of remodel, you need to be very cautious of your overhead because in the end, if it stays like this, then you're fine. Like
Hmm.
if prices go down, like which isn't good, if prices go down, you'll be fine because you'll be invested as normal. But if
Right.
you're to build a house right now as an investment, and then when you're done with it in a year, 2 years, and you're ready to sell it, if you're trying to avoid capital gains or whatever,
Hmm.
um, and the price to build it drops and we're back down to $30 a sheet,
Yeah.
your profit's gone. You just
It's all
lost it.
gone. Hmm.
So it's like it's it's I'm not someone that likes to wait, but I'm telling these people, I'm like, you gotta be careful. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen. I don't know, but like I
Yeah.
mean, that's a major overinvestment when you think about $71 and then when you're trying to sell that same sheet is going for $30.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you've got two catalysts kind of, turning that table, and one of them is going to be, I mean, it's just basically the law of diminishing returns. And like with your t-shirts, people will keep paying a certain price because the value to them is worth buying it, right? But there's a point where if you're at $120 a t-shirt, that may be the law of diminishing returns, that point where people say, it doesn't matter if I have the money to buy it, I'm not buying it. And then suddenly
Yeah.
people don't have the money to buy it and they stop buying it, which at some point will actually drive the price back down because there's no more demand left, right? So supply, plenty of it, there's no demand left. Well, in order to get the supply out of the way, we have to start dropping the price until people say it's good to buy again. Real estate, every entity in a market, it reacts the same way. And that's going to happen with housing, where people start going back into the rental market and saying, I can't afford to buy. I don't have the cash to put down, whatever the requirements are. Um, but it's all intent with real estate too. And that's kind of the thing I tell people. The same deal is like, if your intent is to buy and hold for only a couple of years, then I would wait because you're going to get a much better price in a couple of years. If you think this is a primary residence for you and you're going to live there for 15, 20 years, I don't see any problem buying right now. But the
Yeah.
difference is that's not really what's driving markets at this point. People are in and out of homes every 3 to 5 years, and I'm real hesitant. I mean, personally, I'm doing the same thing. I know I just bought another, I say that, but I just bought another investment property, but it's like I know we're going to sit on that one. And this one was a little bit different because there's a building aspect to it that could someone come knock on the door in a year because of the way it's zoned and say, I'll buy it for me. It's worth it because I can develop more of what's here, as
Yeah.
opposed to just, it's just a house and it rents. But that was the only reason we kind of looked at it. And, I knew the person. It was kind of a, less than arm's length deal. I knew the person was selling it. We got a good deal on it. She's out of there and it helped her, kind of thing. But I'm hesitant otherwise, for sure. And you're right. If that cost to build goes down and it regresses 30-50%, not good. So it's it's
Yeah.
it's it's an ugly
I
situation.
I was talking to my friend about it. I think if you're buying to hold, like I think real estate, especially the way that the country is right now, I think real estate is a great thing to get into. I
Hmm.
think it's the one um, asset that you can have that you're not going to lose on no matter what for the most part. I think putting the money into it after the fact is kind of where things get shaky. Like if you
Right.
can purchase real estate, even if the real estate's a little high right now, you're gonna make your money back no matter what. Like at some point in time, you're gonna
Yeah.
have some value in that property. I think the big, what I would press pause on right now, if you're planning on buying rehabs, putting 30, 90 days into it and flipping it, that to me seems a little worrisome just because the amount of money you're going to put into it. For example, I mean, at my first remodel out here in Texas, I put 60 grand into it. Um,
Mhm.
Now that would probably be 110, 115
Right.
grand if I were
Yeah.
to do what I did then. I mean, that was back in 2018, right? Everything was going good. The prices were all low.
Yep.
If I were to do that same remodel with the same materials, the same time frame, I would be, almost double that price.
Yeah.
And the sale of that house, even to this day, the sale of that house is still around the same, to be honest, because of the
Hmm.
area I'm in. So it's just, man, I don't know, man. All this to say, I don't know what's going on in the world. That's where I'm at.
It's no, man, it's hard, right? It can be trying, and my wife kinda makes fun of me too because 'cause I'm always, like, reaching for answers and I'm in front of everything all the time, and I'm not, like, sitting there watching news because I can't do that, but as far as, like, understanding the nuances and things behind the curtain, I know too
Yeah.
much, most of the time, and that makes it hard, and it's I think it stresses me out. It's probably giving me gray hairs too, but um understanding the dynamics of these markets and just the overall world itself, it's very sad. And it's, you know,
It's
can things
I
get better? Yeah, but it's rough right now, man. And I just feel so bad for so many people. It's starting to kind of drive a dagger through me.
I feel the same way, and that's kind of why I'm on the build that I'm on now, is kind of removing myself from a lot of the stresses and false panic. And I don't mean
Right.
false as in not validated. I mean false as in it's not going to help you. It's not going to get you
100%.
anywhere.
Yep.
Um, I think what frustrates me the most, I got a message from a guy the other day on social media, and he was like, "Bro, you encouraged me to start my own company." He just quit his job like 2 days ago,
Oh,
and I was
wow.
like, "Damn, wait, don't put that on me, man. Come on now."
Don't
But
give
he
me that
sent me a
juju.
message. Yeah, seriously. But he sent me a message, told me he started his company. He's going to do small bathroom remodels. He's trying to expand to kitchens, and then he wants to eventually do full remodels. So I'm stoked for people like that. But what bugs me and kind of bums me out is that the way the world's going right now, and I'm not blaming on anybody specifically, I just mean like as time goes on, societies change.
Mhm.
We're really stepping into an era where we're removing power from the people and from the builders and from like you and me, and we're
Yep.
putting it into these large conglomerate and corporations to have them do it all. Like you have these companies, I can't think of their name right now, but I was watching a documentary, not a documentary, but like a little YouTube short on them. These companies are owning, $1 billion worth of real estate, and they're going in and they're
Mm.
doing these flips, and then they're renting it out at mass numbers, right? They're
Mhm.
holding 80,000 properties in their portfolio, and they're doing the remodels, and they have their own construction companies under it. So these large companies, which are worth over, $1 billion, there's a bunch of them out there. And they're
Yeah.
all now in charge because they can front the overhead. They can take the bite right now and spend that extra 30, 40, 120, $1,000, whatever it is,
Yep.
and still make money. Where you and I, it's like, yeah, so I could have done this remodel for 100,000 last year. Now I have to do it for 160 this year. People are be like, no, we're not going to do it. So what
Right.
happens? That house either goes on the market or the lot stays on the market. This large company buys it up because they can say, hey, $20,000 over asking. That's fine. We'll make it back on our portfolio. And now it's slowly just removing you and me and all the other people that are just getting into the business from
Mhm.
being able to make our own income and create our own businesses and create our own portfolios. And I mean, it's capitalism, right? I mean, it is what
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
But when and I don't want to say government, but when the way things are structured stifles the little guy, that's what bugs me.
Mhm.
That's why I moved to Texas, is because doing business in California, I was like, why am I paying all this money to these
Oh,
invisible people? Like,
yeah.
why am I every move I make, I'm paying a couple grand to some thing that I don't even know why it's there. Like this
Oh,
this
it's insane.
administration over here and paperwork over here. And I'm like, I just spent 30 grand and I don't even know who or where that money went.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I'm gonna move to Texas, and now I get a bill going, and I've only spent $330 out of my pocket to get a permit. And
That's
like
amazing.
that's what gets me excited. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably more in the spending 30 grand before you even put
Oh,
a
it's
shovel in the dirt.
yeah, it just makes me sick. Yes, I mean, sometimes it's 100K easy before we even get going. And it's
Yeah.
not I mean, I've heard horror stories in California, all the fees, but it's not worse here, but it's getting close, man. It's
And
really
it
hard, and
stops you.
it stops you from wanting to do it. It stops people from saying I mean, I one of the kind of, stigmas I had was, some of those costs, but I would have this little lingo I would have with clients. I'd go visit them at their project and see what they wanted to do, and then I'd have my little spiel, and I say, "Do you understand the cost of a permit?" And
Mm,
because I don't want to sit down and do this whole estimate and break all this stuff down, then they see this line item at the top for building permit, and they're just like, what is this?"
yeah.
And they'd say no, and I'd say for this project, it's probably going to be around 15 grand, 30 grand. Um,
Jeez.
whatever it is. And this is for like basement remodels and additions.
What?
Yeah, and if you get into like the new builds and like tap fees, and I said, Have you guys
Oh,
looked up your tap fees? Have you guys?" And I say, here's the kind of estimates, and they look at me like, we can't do that. We can't afford that. We didn't even think that would be even remotely that close.
just blew their budget
Just
on
absolutely,
administrative.
they're 50 extra $1,000 they want to do for that. It's gone. And they're like, "Well, I'm sorry to waste your time, Shane." I'm like, "Well, that's why I tell you now, because I'm not going to go back and throw
Yeah.
this at you, and then everybody gets their time wasted." But the disappointment in those people's faces crushed me, and I like I said, like you're doing, I had to remove myself from it. I just couldn't do it anymore. It's like it's heartbreaking.
You
It's
can't do
just
anything about it.
sucks. Yeah. And I'm like, "Who's getting
It's
this?
the
What's
way it
what's this
works.
for?" Yeah, what's all this money for? Are you guys getting raises at the building department? I know a lot.
Yeah,
I mean,
are you gonna that's crazy.
it's insane. It's really sad, and I know the guys that work at the building department, and unless they're hiding a lot of shit from me, they're not making that much
Right?
money.
And they're
So
not pulling out in Porsches. I
mm-mm.
don't that's I got, just to rub it in a little bit more, I got electricity, or I'm getting electricity ran to my property, for $1,016. Yeah.
Oh, times
Let
3.
that sink in.
Oh my
Let
god.
that sink in, and
Maybe I'll move to
that's
Texas,
yeah,
dude. That's
that's
insane. Damn.
when I went in there to get the invoice, I was like, "Wait, is this like like a deposit?
Yeah,
Like,
what is this?
is this put me on the books or like?" They're like, "No, that's it." I'm like, "So it's gonna just show up?" They're like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Wow." Like,
Oh,
but I
man.
mean, that's what I love. That's what I love to see. Because in the end, like, man, I'm for people, individuals getting their dream. I mean, that's what I'm building right now. I'm
Yeah.
building, my dream property, and when I see all these things stopping people from doing that, right? Like we all harp on, Bezos makes too much money, Elon Musk has like all this. We talk about all this different stuff, but then we advocate for more regulations on
Yeah.
you and me. Just Joe Schmo just trying to have a house where he can do what he wants to do,
Yep.
and now you're getting shut down, and that's just giving more ability to these people that have the money to buy up that lot that you were going to buy and build a
Yeah.
dream home on. Now Elon Musk bought it and he's putting a Tesla factory there, or
Mhm.
so and so corporation bought it and they're going to build a house and they're going to rent it out and set the market price for rent in your area. Like
Yep.
that's what's happening in these areas. And I mean, in areas of Texas, I mean, it's starting to be the regulations are starting to kind of inch their way over here.
Mhm.
Um, and some regulations I understand, ensuring safety and quality. I'm totally fine with those.
Right.
But a lot of it is just, man, it's just like you said. I don't know if it's ever gonna turn back around. I mean, I think full steam ahead, whether you like it or not. So
Yeah.
now it's a learn how to maneuver game.
Yeah, and then the only thing we can do is bring the cost down on our end, and hope that, real estate can correct on some level for a while. But there's so many factors involved. I just don't see how it all can capitulate at any point. I just don't see how that's gonna
A
work.
crash, man. Where I'm waiting for that crash.
Yeah, I
Not
know a
not
lot
not
of
like
people are.
positively, but it's gonna happen. It's gonna
Right.
happen, man.
Yeah, it's
I'm
set
waiting
up.
for it,
I
and then
mean,
I'm buying everything.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, and that you listen, I mean, capitalism is capitalism. I'm not gonna say anything bad about it. There's good and bad of all that stuff, but everybody wants to make money, and if anyone's out there telling you they don't care, they're full of shit. They're lying to you, because if you walked in and gave them $1
Yeah.
million tomorrow, they wouldn't say no thank you. Actually, that's not true. I know one person that probably would, but I mean overall people, that's what it
I
is.
would. I'd be like, "What is this dirty money?
Yeah,
You're
right.
not getting me in trouble. I
Whose
don't want
blood
your
is on this?
$1,000,000." Exactly. No way.
Yeah.
That
Yeah,
I
it's
mean, man, in the end, you gotta just do it. You gotta just do it.
yep.
Like we're all the things that we talked about, and if anybody's listening, all the things, if you're taking what we said to heart, all the things that we
Mhm.
talked about, it is life. Like literally is life. So it can't be something that stops you from doing
No.
whatever it is you're trying to do, right? And
No.
I think that's one thing that I figured out is like it doesn't matter what the circumstance is. If you have something that you're trying to get done, you got to get it done. You can't be like, oh, I'm gonna wait 10 years. Hopefully this will pay. Like that
Yep.
might never happen, and then you just wasted 10 years. So you might as well start now. Maybe you lose a little bit of profit. Maybe you lose 20 grand, in your profit here and there, but maybe you just sit on the property a little bit longer. Maybe you hold it, maybe you rent it, maybe you live in it.
Mhm.
And everything I do, I have 7 or 8 exit strategies, right? Like
Yep.
I have my criteria of like, okay, it's got to be a university town. It's got to have at least one hospital that's of good size. It's got to have a couple different things, maybe some travel, some type of attraction. And if I have all those variables, then I'm like, okay, that's a good property. Because then if
Mhm.
the flip doesn't happen, then I have rental for students. Because there's always going to be students in a university.
Yep.
If the students aren't renting it, then VRBO. Because there's an attraction like here in Waco, there's Magnolia, and if the VRBO isn't renting, and then I can move into it myself, and then basically write it off
Yeah.
until I can do something with it, or use it as whatever I can, so that I don't stop myself from diving into it. I just make sure once I dive into it, I have multiple avenues to go down.
Right, and it's all about game plan. When you're working for yourself, when you're an entrepreneur, when you're an investor, it's all about game plan. And you have that plan, you go in and you execute that plan. And I think where people get kind of confused or in trouble is when they start making rash decisions based on emotion and they get so far away from that game plan that they make the wrong decision and the wrong choice. And that's, with anything, like I'm preaching to people all the time, is just make sure that if you have a game plan, it makes sense. Stick with it. You'll be okay. Yeah. I mean, short term, things could turn upside down on you real quick. But if your game plan is one of those options, for sure, like in real estate, you're going to be fine. You just got to take a deep breath and you're going to be sweaty for a little bit. It's okay. And that's part of the risk that's involved. But that's also part of like if people have these dreams and all these things they want to do, it's going to be risky. It's going to be scary. It's going to be uncomfortable. And you just got to get used to
Even
that.
if it all goes according to plan.
Even if it all goes according to plan, I mean, you guys watch when we start getting onto this, you'll see there's like I have two personalities. I have a job site personality and I have my normal personality. And when I don't get my way, I'm a baby. I mean, trust me, when things, especially if I'm doing the work and I don't like it, it gets ugly real fast. And sometimes people take lunch early. So it's it's one of
Yeah.
those things where like I got to get away and come back. And it's it's all I mean, every night I lay there thinking about something else, and I'm like, "Did I think about this? What about that?" It's just something new for me.
Tossing and turning at night.
Toss and turn and think, and I go and I write down on the whiteboard all these different ideas. I have talked to as many people as I can about this. In fact, we're having the guy from Containing Luxury on here in a couple weeks too, and he's doing all
Nice.
these container builds everywhere. In fact, he's doing them in Texas too. And I mean, he's blowing up. It's really cool to watch. But he's got his plan and he's sticking to it. This is what's working. This is what his controlled cost is going to be, and there's no waffling. Like I was trying to talk him into a couple of things, and he's like, "Nope, this is what we do. Nope, this is what we do."
Yeah.
That sounds great, but that's not what I do. It's like, what, really? But I've even picked his brain on a bunch of stuff, and he's like, "Well, here's why I'm doing it the way I'm doing it, and here's what I see." You go
See,
your way, I'll go
I
mine.
like that.
Yeah.
I like when people have a way of doing. There's a double-edged sword there though, because you can cut yourself down, or you can actually make a path for yourself. But when people are like, this is why this is I do it this way, and this is the only way I do it, and I'm not going to
Hmm.
step outside of my comfort zone. But that could be bad because then you get stuck in this echo chamber. You get stuck down this path that you could develop and be better. But when someone can say, "This is what I do, and this is why I do it, and this is why I believe it's superior,"
Hmm.
that's that's a different that's a different level of knowledge because now it's like you're explaining to me why this is more effective, whether it's cost
Yeah.
effective or energy effective, whatever it is. Um, now I don't have to ask. Now I don't have to ask questions. I'm like, oh, that's why. That makes sense. That's better than what I thought. That's cool. But a lot of people I run into that are like, this is why. This is what I do. This is the only way I do it. I'm like, look
Yeah.
at all this. Look at all these. Look at all
I
that. And they're like,
know.
but this is why. And that's the bad side of it. So
You don't want to get
I
rigid.
like people that know what they do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Exactly, and that's why I always ask the why with the people that are like, "This is why, this is what I do," and I'm like, "Why?" And they'll usually, if the why is an answer to because all these other ways I did it didn't work, and here are the reasons, and I go, "Okay," and then my brain goes, "How could I figure out a solution to why they couldn't figure it out?" And if I can't figure it out, it usually comes back to, I don't need to waste my time.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that ahead of me, kind of thing. The innovation sometimes leads the rest of us into, the deep end of the pool. So, um,
That is so me. I'm always trying to figure out, like, if someone's like, "Oh, well, it's not possible to do it like this because they want," I'm like, "Give me a couple days.
yeah,
I'm gonna
yeah,
get online. I'm gonna do as much research because I bet there's something out there that you miss. Because like, I don't take things at face value. I can't.
yeah, you can't.
I just I respect a lot of people, and I like even Matt Reisinger will say stuff, and I watch him because he's pretty much upper echelon when it comes to energy efficient homes, stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I'll watch it, and he's like, "I'm doing this, I'm doing that," and I'm like, but I think there could be a better way. Like that seems like and I'll dive into it, and like most of the time, obviously, he's well on top of it. But
Yeah.
every now and then, I'll take something like even on the house I'm doing right now, I'm taking something that he's doing, and I'm twisting it a little bit,
Mhm.
to try and make it a little bit more cost effective because that man will throw millions into a property and
Oh,
it's not
yeah.
feasible for most people, right? It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, that's great, you have a an efficient home, but like we don't have 3 mil or brand endorsements like he does to just
Yeah.
excessively double sheet a house. Like, come on now.
Right. Right. Exactly. And by the way, John and I are looking for more endorsements. We'll never turn those down. So if you guys are listening, you want some more of
Yeah.
those, shout out to Matt. But yeah, so I mean, some of the Marvin door systems he puts in, and I'm like, that is amazing. I'm like, that's one of the reasons why I don't let my wife watch some of that stuff because she's like, well, because we're kind of thinking about we're building our own thing here in a little bit, and she's like, you do all these great things for all these people and all these, houses that you sell, whatever. And why can't we do this and this? And I'm like, listen to me. Matt just blew like $40,000 on that door. Right. I don't think it's this. Is it cool? Oh, hell yeah, it's cool. But is it necessary? No, not in the least. I'm like, here's a product I'm gonna use, and it's like half the price, and it's just, stuff like that. And yeah, you're right. There's different ways of doing things. And I see some of Matt's stuff. And listen, Matt's a good dude. But sometimes I'm like, I feel like that's
Yeah.
like, you're kind of stuck in this mode. Again, same things, like you're stuck in a certain way of doing it. Have you tried this? Because this is way better and gets the better
I
result.
mean, I feel like when you're on his level of appearance though, when you're not only doing it, but you're showing it, you kinda
Mhm.
have to go, it's like HGTV, right? It's like you gotta go flashy, shiny,
Mhm.
big, and loud.
Oh, of course.
Um, And if you don't, then someone in the comments is gonna be, "Hey, well, you should have done it. It would have been." So,
Yeah.
like, I get the predicament that he's in because I'm the same way. I'll post something and they'll be like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know, man. I messed up. Like, we everything's not perfect. You know that, right?" But everybody in the world apparently is perfect, especially in the comment section. But
Oh god, I know. It's
I
horrible.
get what he does, but like in the end, like I appreciate, like, what he does, and I learn a ton from it, and
Mhm.
then you kinda gotta take it, like you just said with the door, like, you take it, and then you apply it to your budget, right? And
Right,
you're like, "Okay,
yeah.
what are some key aspects that from what I just learned? Because he did everything. Now
Uh-huh.
let me pick 5, and let me see if I can afford 5 of those things to make my home a little more efficient."
Right.
And I think that's what he's doing. He's giving you the top of the line, the best of the best, and then you can pick some of those things that really would apply to your home. And I think more builders need to do that. I mean, I think a lot of us, and I said this on one of my YouTube videos, is I when I started in restorations, like restoring old homes, I love the craftsmanship of
Mm.
old homes, right?
Yeah.
1900s. They put trim, and I always say this, but they put trim on the inside of a 2-foot closet. Like they put door trim on the
Yep.
top, the bottom. They baseboard it real nice. They got the crown molding in there if they have crown, because that's what you did back then,
Yep.
right? The framing was, the notches, they were doing a lot of stuff with these hand saws, and if
Uh-huh.
something needed to be notched, they notched it because you were supposed to.
Right.
So when I build, I try, and I don't do it all the time, but I try to be as meticulous as possible on the little things that people would just be like, "Ah, it's not that big a deal."
Mhm.
And overall, build something for longevity versus cost. Nowadays, everybody builds to see, hey, can I get into this for least amount of money possible, so that when I
Right.
sell it in 3 years, I can have a profit. Versus, when they're building a house for themselves or I'm building a house for them, it's not, hey, how can I build this house so when I'm old and gray, my kids will have a property that's well built, that can be remodeled, that can be sold if they need to, whatever it is. I'm trying to get people back in that mentality of like, if I'm going to build you a house or remodel you a house and you're planning on living in this, can
Mhm.
we do it to where you're going to be proud of it in 50 years, 75 years?
Yeah.
Because that's what gets me excited, is knowing that someone's going to remodel my work in 75 years versus it's going to be that house in the town that people are like, we're going to have to just knock it down because it's going to be cheaper.
Right, and yeah, you don't wanna have your name on something like that, but it's prideful to be able to drive. I mean, I still drive by some of my projects just to kinda peek in, see what's up. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh my god, what did they
Yeah,
do
what you
here?"
do?
No, we just drove by our first house we ever bought, the other day, and it'd been a long time since I'd driven by there. I mean, they did what I was gonna do, but they did it on, like, a cheaper level as far as they popped the top, and then when they resided it, I'm like, "God, they used the same just." It was kinda disappointing, but at the same time, like, that's exactly what, we were going to do, and it was kinda cool to see some of the stuff on that first floor was I could see, kinda see in there. I'm like, "Oh, I don't think they've done much inside," that's kinda makes me feel
Yeah,
better, some of the
yeah.
landscaping was the same, but, I don't want somebody tearing my stuff down, or if they do,
No,
they're gonna
this
bitch
is
and moan about it, like, I take pride in the fact we did roofs. It was like, you go back on some of
this ain't
these,
coming down.
this ain't coming down, and if you gotta go tear your own stuff down, it's like, "Oh, shit, I don't wanna do this. This is gonna suck."
I did that the other day. I had to tear down out some windows that I framed because I didn't frame in the right spot. I was like, man, these things were solid. Like, I mean, these like there was no room to get my hammer in there to try to pry them out. I'm like, these things are sitting flush and stuck together well. This sucks.
That's yeah,
This
this
is
this
not fun.
sucks.
But in the end, I think that's the goal.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the goal. When you're mad that you have to tear out your own work, you know you're building well.
You're doing it right. Yeah, you're doing it right. Well, do you wanna talk about what you're doing for a few minutes? I mean, kinda tell us. You don't have to tell us how or why, but just kinda, like, what you're up to, and, give us generalities. I see it on John's doing a lot of stuff on Instagram with some of this stuff too, and I've seen stuff on your YouTube channel, but, it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I really do envy you. I mean, are you out there by yourself most days?
Yeah, pretty much. I'm just having fun with it. So I'm
Mhm,
doing kind of an ancient like what you would see back in the 1900s when they would just basically put piers on the ground, throw
mhm,
some beams on it, and
mhm,
frame up a house. So I'm kind of framing it 1900 style, where it's just I've got 6x6 beams going across, 8 foot center, pretty much for those beams,
mhm.
on some piers. The piers do go well down to bedrock here in Texas because we can hit bedrock here.
Yeah,
So basically, just drilled some holes down into the ground, poured some concrete in there, and then bracketed some beams to them,
mhm,
and then just framed up a floor system on it, and went from there. It's I bought 17 acres out in basically, I don't it's not the hill country, but over outside of Weatherford, over by Fort Worth,
okay,
Texas, and basically going to build it up as a family ranch pretty much. We're building this
nice,
guest house right now. Then we're building a big, like a 4,000 square foot main house, and then we're going to be building a barn, and then I'm going to build myself a shop. I'm honestly, I tell all my partners that I work with, like this land is like my canvas, if you will,
uh-huh, yep,
and I'm going to explore every aspect of building that I want to on this property, and see what I like, what I dislike, what technology I want to, infuse into these builds. For example, the one with guest house we're doing now, I'm actually doing it with a closed frame zip system. So basically, there's no
okay,
rafter tails. There's no on the gable walls. It's all just like a Monopoly house, what Matt Reisinger calls it.
yep,
So if you can picture a Monopoly house with no eaves, no awnings, no nothing, that's what
right,
I'm doing. I'm zip taping the entire structure together. So there's 100% vapor barrier on the entire house, closed cell
love it,
foam under the house, so the you won't have any cold air seeping up through your floor, and you
mhm,
won't lose any of your cold air through the floor. So you have a perfect envelope for the most part, except for obviously windows and doors. And then I'm going to attach my fascia on the exterior, as
okay,
well as insulate the exterior of the roof under the sheet metal, which I was going to do anyway because just it quiets your metal roof.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely,
so it's just I've never done it before. I've never done a close-end house with no rafter tails.
mhm,
So it looks really dinky. I'm not gonna lie. Uh, but yeah, man, that's kind of what we're on right now, and it's a fun build because I'm not answering to anybody. I mean, I've changed my
Right.
mind 10 times on the job. To not answer to anybody and to have no inspections really has given me the ability to run free with this. Like,
Ugh,
I don't think you know the set like how much freedom that is on a build to be like, I don't have an inspection and I don't have a client. Like, I
yeah.
mean, I could build a chicken coop in my kitchen if I wanted to.
I don't know what I'd do with myself if I had that much I mean, I think I'd have a moment of, maybe a freak out moment, just kinda like,
I'll tell you what you do. You change your mind every 5 minutes.
oh, I'm sure I would. I probably would be out there tearing stuff down, whether I put it in the wrong place or not, just tearing it down because I'd wake up in the morning like I have a better idea. Go back
Oh
out there
man.
and someone would be watching me rip stuff down and like, "What are you doing? This was done." I mean, yeah,
Yep.
that's the part that scares me about building our own home is, we'll have everything set up. I'm gonna take like 2 years to plan this thing out, right? So by the time I get to the site, we're just gonna go. But at the same time, that scares me because I know what I'm gonna do, especially if I was in that
Oh
kind of
yeah.
situation. And I love it.
Dollar
I mean,
signs.
I'm oh yeah, exactly. How much money can I spend?
And that's why I'm building it solo though. Like I'm blessed to be able to kind of do it on my own. So therefore, like materials, yeah, here and there. But I mean, most of the time, if you're changing something out, you can probably reuse your materials. But
Oh, for sure. Yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, you change your mind a lot. You're
Yeah.
like, oh, this window's like 2 inches too high. I know it's gonna bother me down the road, and it's either now or never. So then
Yep.
you change it, right? Or
Yep.
this bedroom, let's give it an extra 2 feet. Or actually, I want French doors. Actually, I want this window. And then you just because when you see it on paper, which I mean, I've hashed out, I have like stacks of papers of different floor plans. And then you get in the space, you build it, you frame the walls, and you're like, I need some elbow room right here. And yeah, you'll never make up your mind.
Well, I would definitely be like that. I mean, I won't ever be able to do that here without inspections at least. So there's be a piece of me that, I have to do certain things just the way it is. Not that I would, skimp on anything, but just change things up and not have to worry about getting arguments with inspectors over, how the engineering is going here or how the structure is going to fit here or whatever. And I've had plenty of those, but I think a little bit of that is going to be just me saying, just maybe even like defer to the family, like, hey, this is what we have on paper. This is what I want to do. You guys need to make the final decision because if I'm here, it could be another week and you'll never see a change on this build because I've started over 19 times. So I think that might be part of the play too. But I mean that's always been a dream of mine to do that. So I'm very jealous of what you're doing, but I love watching it and it's super cool, man. I love it.
It's a fun. I'm enjoying it, man. I appreciate that. It's and I have a lot of sponsors that have been working with me, so I get to do a lot of stuff, for fairly, inexpensive cost. So I really get to kind of dive into the I can really spend money where I want to spend money
Hmm.
versus having to buy all the materials. I reach out to some companies. I'm like, hey, like I would love to try your product here and there and like see how it works and how it, show people the actual utility of it versus just a picture of it in your shop. So I
Right.
get to reach out to a lot of companies and get some product like that. And yeah, it's honestly um I think building should always be a question mark. Like you should always question why have we done it this way? Because there's some things like roof framing, floor joists, wall framing for the most part. Like we've done it one way since the beginning, like since the
Hmm.
beginning.
Yep.
And there are people that have tried different ways to do it, but overall, like that's pretty sound how it's done. 16 on
Hmm.
center, 19 and a what 3/16. I've never framed 19 and is it 3/16?
Yeah, it's
Never framed
point
that.
point. If you just go get a tape measure, says point two. That's how I trained all the little guys. Is just get them a tape measure that says
Yeah,
19.2 with a little diamond right there. And I'm like, don't even worry about what that fraction is. Just find the diamond and
just
mark it.
fine. Yeah, I've never framed a house at that. I
Oh,
don't really
really?
know. No, never. I'm 16 or 24. Like that's pretty
Yeah.
much it.
The engineers I
Um,
work with, we do a lot of like TJI, joist work. We do all on
yep.
19 too, which is
Okay.
it's really fast, but you have to like again preparing ahead of time, kind of briefing the guys like, hey, we're on the diamond today, right? Just pay attention to your diamond
Yeah.
on your, and I'll go buy. Sometimes I go buy new tape measures just to make sure
Like
no one screws up. Like
clear.
use this one right here as your mark, right? Just and run and
So
go. But
is is there, just because I'm curious, is there a
Mm.
benefit to that? Is it like like engineered weight distribution, or what is it? Why 19?
Just less material, and because if depending on what joist you're running or what truss you're running, whatever it is, engineering wise, it's all about deflection rates, right?
Yeah,
You want to be able to, it's going to hold up, but you also want to like minimize your deflection when you walk across the floor. And I know a lot of people listening to this, like, oh yeah, my house, the floor bounces a lot, or my husband runs across the kids, and that's a deflection rate. Now, there's a minimum deflection rate you can use with materials, and you're going to get that rebound, that kind of bouncing of squishiness of the floor. But there's ways to combat that other than just, on center framing too. It's, going to a thicker subfloor.
like
A
an
lot
inch
of
and a
stuff I've
quarter.
done is, yeah, exactly. So you can do both, but it's really just a saving on material and then faster build time. So if you're laying out less, you're marking up less, you're cutting less, and you're using less material. If you can go that
And
way,
so
it's
so you
great.
could do like 19 on center, 19 3/16 or whatever it is, and do
Mhm.
like a 3/4 ply or a 3/4 subfloor versus actually having to spend money on the 1 and 1 1/4.
Yep, exactly, and it's all that comes down to, like, 1 span and 2 size of the TGI or whatever, material you're using, and then that's just
Yeah.
calculations the engineer runs, and you just have a conversation about, "Well, this is what the deflection rate is now," and usually those numbers are in my head now, so I know, okay, that feels like this on a floor, so then I can make the decision. I can run 3/4 subfloor, but do I want that deflection, or do I go inch and a quarter? And then, okay, does that better than just running 16 on center? So it's all the science stuff that I love to do, but it's in the beginning. You got to think about that before you start ordering
Yeah.
materials or changing plans. But that, and
Yeah.
if you're doing 24 on center walls, you like you were saying earlier, you can do more insulation, less cost, better wall assemblies, whatever. So there's a benefit
Yeah.
going either way. You just got to kind of
Yeah.
understand what you're doing. Yeah.
Especially, yeah, like if you're throwing down tile, I mean, the deflection directly correlates with if you're gonna do tile in an area. Like
Hmm.
for me, we kind of changed our mind, like after we already framed up the floor, like, we kind of want some tile here in, in the main area. And I'm like, because the deflection that we have is just, it would not, it would not. We are 16 on center, but we're dimension lumber,
Hmm.
and we're on 3/4 Advantech, and it's just not. The last thing you want in your house is cracked grout lines,
Right.
because your
Right.
deflection is a little too, and so it comes down, like, if we had planned better, if I had planned better from the beginning, then we probably could have. But it does help, because you kind of remove yourself from certain options, especially when it comes to finishes,
Hmm.
um, if you're not thinking about it. So final pick it
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, well, and a lot of times you can do a couple different things too. In those areas, you can either go ahead and sister up a couple joists, or you can block in, run extra bridge blocking in between to kind of reduce that
True.
deflection rate in certain areas. Or, man, I mean, I don't know if you use it, but Schluter is just bomb proof. If you run in your Schluters, instead of cement, I don't use cement board anymore. It's all Schluter
Yeah.
products, and that helps a lot with allowing movement within tile and deflection in itself. It combats that too. So there's
I've
there's
stopped playing
ways to do
tile.
it.
I hate it.
I
I hate
know.
it. But I do love
I like
Schluter.
yeah, yeah, I like tile. Like, I'll do a 30 square foot floor, and I'll be happy. I'll get out of there.
Exit.
But
Yeah, backsplash.
yeah,
We're
or a
cool. I'm
backsplash.
done.
Yeah, but that's it. Then I'm like, "Oh, I don't I'll bring my guys in. Like, you guys are tiling. I'm not doing any of this. I can't handle it."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's satisfactory in the small scale, but like,
Mhm.
man, I grew up. I got into the trades basically by doing flooring. My dad owned a flooring store,
Oh,
so I
that's
got
right.
into
Yeah,
I
yeah.
got into the trades, for lack of a better term, on my knees, just
Yep.
laying floor, man. And I'm telling you, there was no better awakener to, like, be like, go to college than working for my dad. And I think that was his intention.
Uh-huh.
Working, since I was probably like 14, every summer I worked a flooring job all summer long, and yeah, man, I try to stay away from that. Every time my dad comes into town, I'm like, Dad, I need some flooring done over in this house I'm working on. You know, you want to revisit your old
You
days?
come on out and help me out for a couple days? Yeah,
He's good
flooring's
at it
a
too.
that's cool, man. I mean, that's really cool. You kinda grew up doing that with your dad, because my dad doesn't know what a skill saw is. So, he was a developer for a long time, but as far as, like, the actual trade work, I mean, I get a phone call every 5 minutes, and now that he's, like, bored and alone down in his house, he's just constantly looking around for projects to do, and he's like, "What about this?
Yep.
What about that?" I'm like, you don't need to spend that money." But he's like, "Okay, come down and do this and come down." And I'm like, the involvement with that. And I'm like, I
Yeah.
could teach you how to do some of these things. And then you can kind of, he's like, no, 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 I don't want to do that. I
I
don't
don't
want
wanna
to
have
do
to
that.
do them.
Yeah.
I just want
You
an
just come down.
excuse to not.
Right.
I can tell you've been in the trades a lot. You said skill saw. See, I still say skill saw, and everyone's like, "It's
Yeah.
a circular saw."
I know.
I'm
I get
like,
credit
"No,
all the
it's a skill
time. Like,
saw,
yeah,
man.
it's like saying Kleenex. That's what I tell people. I'm like, it's like saying Kleenex.
It's
Kleenex is a
Kleenex."
brand too.
Yeah.
It's not
Or
tissue paper.
Sawzall.
Sawzall. Yep. Yep.
I
Reciprocating
I've
saw.
dude, don't even get me started on the names. People be like, "That's not." I've been battling on TikTok with names of tools. Like, we call it this. I'm like, you guys realize that in different areas you call different things
Yeah.
different, right?
Right.
And people are they're like, "That's not this, that's that," and I'm like, tell me that on my job site and see what happens. Like, just
Right.
try me, man. Try me. Like the miter saw or chop saw. I'm like, dude, whatever is sitting around the job site, that's what I'm
Yeah,
talking about.
that's it. And you guys know what I'm talking about, so don't worry about it. Everybody gets a thumbs up on their comments from me because I just don't have time to battle anybody on that stuff. It's just like, I mean,
No.
do your
Like, all right,
thing.
cool. Yeah.
Do your thing.
If you have the time,
Whatever.
that's fine.
Yeah, I don't have time for this. Oh man. Hey, it's been
Crazy.
great catching up with you. I really appreciate you jumping on here. I know it's always, well, this one is another last minute one, but I just
My life's last minute.
yeah, I hear you. Schedules are schedules, and I know how busy you are. So I greatly appreciate you doing this, especially in the middle of the day. Um, I love hearing about all the things that you're doing. I'm really looking forward to seeing how the build progresses. And like I said, if I can get down there, I definitely will. I'll try and carve out some time and at least ping it so I can get down there and hit a couple things while I'm down there too. It'd be fun. Be fun to see what you're
Yeah.
doing. Yeah,
Definitely, man. No,
yeah,
I'm glad that I got to come on here again and chop it up. And yeah, if you want to come down, you come down. We're doing some weird siding stuff, man. We're doing some weird siding. We're doing some weird stone on the house, bunch of weird stuff. But it's gonna be a fun. I'm excited to be able to walk people through the house and be like, this is this product, and this is the technology behind it. This is this product. So that's kind of why I'm building it, is to be able to kind of show people that are curious about some off-color topics or off-color
yeah,
products, and kind of bring out the key topics of why I chose them and what their efficiencies are and purposes are and stuff. So,
yeah, for sure. Well, hit up Rising, or maybe you can get them down there to give away a couple things
oh
or help
no,
you out
I would
some.
never want Risinger on my build site. I would, bro. I will never have that man on my job site. I swear to God, there's no way. Like, don't look over there. Don't look over there. Actually, no, why don't you just stay outside, man? Don't look at anything that I've done. There's no way.
He definitely could spend some money for you, that's for sure.
Oh man, he would look at my house 1 second, and be like, "That's not safe. I'm not walking in that home. I see a 2x4, a 16th off from the top plate. Not doing it." I'm like, "Get out of here, man. Sorry, I didn't frame with
Uh,
LVLs."
right, everything's engineered. No, no, I
Jeez.
know. Do your thing, man. Do your thing. I love watching it. Keep going with everything that you're doing, not just the build, but everything that you're doing. It's so encouraging to watch you guys coming up doing these kinds of things, and God bless social media in the worst of ways. But I mean, listen, it's beneficial to a lot of people, and
Oh
it's
yeah.
not only for you, but it's helping others. And I know people that have like asked me about, hey, do you know this guy, this guy? And I'm like, yeah, actually, yeah. Yeah, you should watch.
Awesome.
He's paying attention to this stuff because they're you guys are you're giving out free advice. You're giving
Yeah.
out, you're helping people out. And again, if people can figure out some of the small stuff, which is kind of my kind of MO, is if they can figure out some of the DIY small stuff that saves them money, and they're not paying guys like you or me to like come in and say, hey, this is what's going to cost, and they can still
Yeah.
have their little kitchen or whatever. That's great. And it's fun. It's fun doing that. But I really do appreciate everything that you're doing, and just keep going, man. Just keep going.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Right on. Well, I'll drop all your info again on the links when it goes up. You guys know where to find Jon Dawson. Is on Instagram all the time, everywhere for something. He's got a YouTube channel. Again, you can see all that stuff. If you're just listening on the audio version, go down the links below. But once again, the awesome and ever progressing Jon Dawson. I appreciate it, man. Appreciate your time.
I appreciate you, man. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, we'll talk to you soon, bud.
All right. Later.